Welcome to episode 345 of the DFO Rundown presented by Bet365. You can download the app today and use the promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Another busy Thursday in the NHL heading into the weekend. And of course, you got Chargers and Broncos, if you're an NFL fan, on Thursday night as they get set for the push for the playoffs as well in the National Football League. I'm Jason Gregor. We welcome in Frank Saravalli on unofficial gray hoodie day that we're unaware of. Frank, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Well, buddy, I'm good. There's lots to talk about. We got a few trades here on consecutive days leading up to the roster freeze. So let's start with last night's trade between the
there was three
Predators.
yesterday. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the Predators in Montreal.
Okay. So a lot of people were confused by this one, and I could maybe understand why. Last year at the deadline, and just if you're unaware, the trade was Alex Carrier goes from Nashville to Montreal, where our friends at La Poche Bleu, they interviewed him. He said, this is a childhood dream to play for the Canadiens, as you might expect. Yeah. He goes from Nashville to Montreal in exchange for Justin Barron, a younger right shot D. And if you think back to last year at the trade deadline, Carrier was on our trade targets board for the entirety of it and didn't end up moving. He was a guy that was in demand that the Preds were getting lots of calls on. So they keep him for their playoff run. They get to the summer and they wait all the way until July 1st and then give him a 3-year deal. So why move on from him now? You trade him and get a younger guy back, but you trade a defined commodity in Carrier for a project or question mark in Barron.
And I think I know why.
Well, the answer is cap space. The Preds got $2.6 million in cap space, a simple 1-for-1 swap. That's the difference in their pay. And my belief is whether it happens or not before the trade freeze, they're going to take that money and use that to go get a center in a trade.
Yeah, like I look at the trade, and from a Predators perspective, you get a guy who's 5 years younger, who's got a little bit more offensive upside, already has more goals in less than half the amount of games, and he's a lot bigger, right? Carrier is a more proven NHL defenseman, fair, but at the trade deadline, Frank, like he was in demand, but what was he getting? I don't think they were going. I think the second round pick. Like I don't think he was going to get a first. So what were you going to get from him at the deadline? If I look at it from
it's better, I think, arguably, than Justin Barron.
You think a second's better than Barron?
No, I think whatever they were going to be able to get would have been better than what they'd get right now.
Yeah, maybe. I just look at NHL defensemen and the history of it. Like Barron just turned 23. Like he's a really young player, and former first rounder, so has not every first rounder, like you had something to be a first round pick. There's lots of people that thought you were pretty good. And he is, I think in Nashville, they look at this and say, we're getting a bigger defenseman who's shown more offensive upside. He's not as proven, no question about that. And as you mentioned, it frees up cap space. I look at it from Montreal's perspective. A team that's already small just got smaller. Yeah, they got more experience, but I wonder, like, what's their long-term plan on their blue line?
What do you mean long-term plan? It's all in the future. It's David Reinbacher. It's Logan Mailloux. It's all these guys that are on their way up. I mean, they've got other right shot D that they're part of their plans, right?
Yeah, when you look at what they've done, like ask New Jersey about the trade in Montreal, right? Look at Kovacevic. He was 6'5", 220. He's playing unreal for them. They just gave him away because they thought they had better right D in the organization. And early on, that's looked like a terrible decision. So I just wonder about their long-term analysis of their blue line in Montreal.
Well, I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to sprinkle some size in, but it's also highly skilled, right? I mean, the future of
Carrier's not an offensive defenseman, man. Like he's a smaller defensive.
I'm not talking about Carrier. I'm talking about the other guys that they have that are highly skilled. Carrier is just really well-rounded. There's not one part of the game that he isn't good at. He's just not elite at any one part of the game either.
Yeah. I don't know. Good for him. Like, I understand the childhood dream factor. That'll be amazing. But I don't know if I see a real winner or a loser in. I think it's just Nashville's hoping that the 5-year younger guy pans out, and Montreal's like, hey, we get more established guy today. But does that change?
But you're missing the other part of it is what happens next.
Yeah. Well, Nashville, you're right. The cap space benefits them. I don't question that. So I would lean to this being a better deal long term.
But the Canadiens wanted more support on their defense. They also wanted to be in a spot where they weren't having to bring up Mayu and those guys to play. They wanted to keep their young guys in the AHL as long as possible. This saves them from having to do that. And they also get a they might at some point move on from Mike Matheson or David Savard or whoever it might be, one of the vets. How often have we talked about the idea that you can't just turn it over to young guys and expect success? They 100%. Need additional vets there. They need more support. It was a way to do it and get a defined, proven NHL player in exchange for a guy who is unproven.
Yeah. This is the hard part, Frank, and people might, but I look at Montreal and you could say they got better today in the trade, right? I think we'd probably agree right now today they're better, but do they really want to be better today? You know what I mean? Like, why not wait until the deadline, right? Because what if you all of a sudden, win 6
because they did Nashville a favor here. They got the better player in exchange for Nashville getting cap space today. Okay. Nashville is up to something. There was a time and reason to do it today. Maybe later on, if Nashville moved Carrier somewhere else, that they don't end up moving on from Barron in exchange for a proven commodity.
So then you only like this deal if Nashville makes the follow-up trade for them.
Well, yeah, they're going to do something. It's a matter of when.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're right. They need a center. I'd be fascinated to see which one they get.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's hard. Like, they need a number one center. And I don't know if there's any of those guys available right now.
Yeah. I mean, Barron has not been a full-time NHL defenseman.
Yeah. Young. You're right. I don't mind the bet for Nashville, though. So, I'll be honest.
Okay. He's 23. Is he that young to not be a proven NHL defenseman? I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of stories or examples you could point to say, hey, this guy didn't make it till he's 24. Heck, Carrier was a bit of a late bloomer himself. But it's like saying Kappo Kakko young. Like, I'm sorry, Kappo Kakko's 6 years in and has played 330 games. Not young anymore.
Well, yeah, a little bit different. Well, Justin Barron just turned 23, right? So, he started this season. It's his 23-year-old year, but he's played 100 NHL games. Like, to me, he's really young.
4 years.
Yeah, young player. Like, I think way too many people rush guys think they got to be a proven defenseman. Most guys say it's 300 games until you really know what you got for a defense.
He might not even make it to 300 games is my point. All I'm saying is proven commodity for question mark. That's what the deal was. And if you're in Montreal, you jump on that every day of the week.
Okay, but just remember, everybody said Kovacevic wasn't a proven commodity, and look how badly they botched that deal. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm questioning, is Montreal evaluating their team? We'll see, because if Barron goes into Nashville and turns out really well, that's 2 defensemen you've had that you just gave away. Now, Carrier, at least you got something legit for, so that's the one saving grace. But I'm not going to anoint here that Montreal is being great evaluators of the blue line just yet.
Okay, and to be fair, even New Jersey thought that Kovacevic would just be a guy that competed in training camp and would be sent to the AHL. So he exceeded their own expectations by a mile.
He's playing 20 minutes a night, man. It's unreal.
The other deal was honestly thought compete in training camp and we'll see what happens. And he's been a refusal to go anywhere but play those minutes.
He's been one of the best players this season on a new team. No question. Right? Like, if you look around the league of anybody, like UFA signing, trade, whatever, RFA offer sheet guy, he's been really good.
It kind of reminds me of just in an odd way, the Dylan Strome conversation. When you get traded for a 5th round pick, that means really no one else wanted you. So it's not just the Montreal Canadiens. It's like 20 plus other teams that were like, yeah, you know what? We're good.
Yeah. So good for New Jersey. And those type of deals, Frank, the league's littered with them. And it just shows you, like, look at Kovacevic is another great example. Like, I think to say that Barron's like old in his development, I strongly will disagree with that. I think we still have unrealistic expectations for the 80% of the league. Like, there's the superstar guys, and yeah, they're good early on, but man, there's so many other guys that really don't find their stride till mid-20s.
I get it, but you're also discounting the fact that any organization, Montreal, whoever it is that moves on from that player, has had 4 years of direct knowledge that the Preds don't, or that any other team doesn't. So it's not as if they're going into this blind as to what they're giving up.
Yeah,
I think you have to trust part of that.
I think a lot of times these teams get a perception of a player, and it's an internal bias that never changes. And that's why they move on from these players and get, especially defensemen, way more than forwards. Like the history of defensemen getting moved young, who turn out to be way better than the team that traded them thought they would, is quite long, right? Like, it goes back to even elite guys, never mind just solid, number 3s to number 5 defensemen. So I find that the defense position is the one where there's so impatience in organizations to move on from guys.
So right? Then that's the great segue to Kappo Kakko on his way from New York to Seattle. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, let's just say I dislike the Rangers' handling of him from day one. He never should have been in the NHL right after he's drafted. You know what? And now there's some onus on him for certain. You know what? You take a while, but stop rushing players to the NHL. Like, these teams, it's so idiotic. And then they blame the player. And I'm like, what the hell did they do to really help this guy? There's no confidence gain. This whole idea that you've got to play great right away is just, it's lunacy to me. It's absolute lunacy. He's 18-year-old, should never be in the NHL. There's like the odd guy, McDavid, and, Celebrini's pretty well, and Bedard. Okay, sure. There's the odd guy. But look at how many aren't. And look at how many superstar players didn't play in the NHL as teenagers. Superstars. Yet people get all, their nose out of joint and, Kakko's a bust. And I'm not saying he's ever going to live up to the number 2 status when we talk of pure offensive numbers, Frank. But I love this trade for Seattle. I really like it. I think it's a good bet. You give up Will Borgen and 2 draft
picks. A good
picks.
Bet for what? The Kraken to acquire more mid players? Is that what we're talking about here? Hey, it's the perfect milquetoast Seattle Kraken trade.
I think if he becomes a 20-goal scorer, nothing wrong with it.
20-goal scorer. He played an entire season with Artemi Panarin and Ryan Strome and scored 13 goals. What do you mean 20-goal scorer? How many better passers in the league could you possibly play with? Get out of here with that nonsense.
Well, let's go look at how many minutes he played with those guys.
Holy smokes, dude.
So you're saying Kakko's a bust for sure?
I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm saying he's a middle 6 NHL winger. And he's been given way more opportunity because of his draft status than anyone else would. How many NHL games did Nail Yakupov play? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, total 250.
250 in Edmonton before the trade. The Rangers gave Kakko an additional 80 games. 80 games on top of that. You don't think that they know what he is at this point in time after 5.5 NHL seasons?
Yeah, well, I would. My argument is those first 3 years are almost wasted years. If you look at the history of European players, which is very different, they don't play in the North American style. Now it's changing now because their rinks are changing. But for the longest, you go back and look at how many Euros. Go look at the Sedins. We can go through lots of guys who some of them are not even in the NHL at 22. So yeah, he was in the NHL, Frank. He shouldn't have been in the NHL. And that's on the Rangers. I don't blame a player who's not ready.
Nail Yakupov had better numbers in the NHL than Kappo Kakko. Better production. Like if we want to talk about draft, it doesn't, once you get 5.5 years in, I don't care if you were drafted 278th or 2nd. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So they botched it. How did they botch it? Because they put him in the NHL? Okay.
They're right. Yes. Stop putting players in the NHL who aren't ready to be in the NHL and then complain when they don't succeed in the NHL.
Okay.
It's
At some
idiotic.
point, you don't think it's fair that players just are what they are?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think he's going to live up to his status, but I think he can easily be
So
a 20,
why do you like this from Seattle's
guy.
point of view? Because they take a flyer on him?
Yeah.
I actually like this from New York's point of view. They had to make a decision on Kakko at some point this year. He's pending RFA, then 1 year later gets to UFA. So you're either signing this guy to a deal that extends a number of years and you're buying some free agent years, or you're letting him go and trading him. The fact, and I know the Rangers, or the belief out there, and I've seen the reporting is, oh, the Rangers, they didn't make this trade because of the comments that he made. No, they didn't make it because of that, but that definitely hastened it this week. When you come out and say, it feels like the coach is picking on me because I'm the young guy, and then the next game he follows up when he's back in the lineup with, hey, you get the second least ice time you've had as a Ranger, like, things are boiling over. It's coming to a head. But I like this from the Rangers' perspective, not just because they had to make a decision, but I believe, and in watching Will Borgen closely, that he's exactly the type of defenseman that they needed to add to their team. I'm not saying there's a sexiness to his game or whatever it might be. He's not flashy. He's steady. He's got size. He's got wheels, like he can skate, and he doesn't give up the home run. The Rangers have been a mess in their own end. He defends well and makes simple plays. He's steady. And I think they've just improved their team in the here and now.
Well, I like Borgen for what he is as a player. 100%. I have no problem with Will Borgen helping them there. Seattle, where Seattle's going, they got enough defensemen. So, is it a risk that doesn't pan out? 100%. But sometimes you got to take a risk if you want to cash in on a guy. And so they're betting that Kappo Kakko in a new organization can be. And if you're a 20-goal scorer, he's not going to be a top end guy. I get it, but they don't have enough 20-goal scorers.
Dude, he's not proven he can be. He's not even close to proving he can be a 20-goal scorer. You're saying on a good day he could be a 20-goal scorer. Like everything goes right for him, he's a 20-goal scorer.
Well, not even right. Like he scored 18 before. Like I don't think 20 is a crazy.
That was the year he played with Strome and Panarin. 22-23.
Okay.
15 minutes plus a night. 18 goals, 40 points.
18 goals, 40 points, no power play time, right? So that's pretty much all even strength. That's pretty good production. You got to remember, if you're not on the power play, you're not putting up any numbers. He got some
power play time. He was on the second unit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he's not a world beater. And because he was picked at number 2, he just gets way more attention than anyone else. And we talk about him like,
it's ridiculous, dude. Yakupov.
Why?
Because he has zero hockey sense.
Okay, Kakko has zero finishing ability. Like, what are we like? I don't understand. Like, the point is, number 1 pick, number 2 pick. He got 250 games. He got 330.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it pans out. But I don't. That's what's great about it. No one knows for sure. But I'm not going to talk in certainties like Kappo Kakko's a bust. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not. At no point have I used the word bust, and I hate the word bust because a player.
But you just said he's not. You don't think he's going to be an effective player. Like if you can't score with Panarin, and now you're comparing him to Yakupov, who everybody said did nothing. So if you're comparing him to Yakupov, you're basically saying you don't think he's very good.
I don't. I do not. I don't. And I'm saying the player doesn't pick where he's picked. That's what the team does. Yes. So I hate the word bust because, it's the team that made the decision, not you. And at a certain point, players are just what they are and whatever they will be. I know that sounds funny to say, but Kakko, I believe, is what he is. And we have a plenty large enough sample size to think that that's going to be the case. And feel free to clip this and play it later if he doesn't do it.
Sure.
Not if he doesn't do it. If he does, like, feel free to clip it and play it for me and make fun of me. I'm happy to take the egg on my face. I just think we know enough now to know that he's nothing special.
Oh, well, I don't think he's going to be special. Let's not confuse two things. But if you become a consistent 20-goal scorer, you're a solid player in the NHL. A consistent 20-goal scorer now is a second-line player in today's NHL.
Dude, he's got 4 goals in 30 games.
Yeah.
He's a long way from being a consistent 20-goal scorer, a mark that he's never hit.
Right. I think it's obvious him and the coach weren't on the same page. So to me, Seattle makes this deal, Frank, then they've got to put him in. They got to show the kid an opportunity. Now it's up to him then to take advantage of it. But if I'm Seattle and I look at their roster, I'm putting him with some of my young guys, Matty Beniers, who you think's an offensive player, McCann, Shane Wright, and playing with some of those guys and see what he does.
Okay.
Which
it's
now
it's the perfect Kraken trade.
Well, that could be fair. I guess some would argue that maybe he's he's got good underlying numbers, so it's kind of similar to all those years in Carolina for Francis. I can see that argument.
Okay.
So now let's go to the third trade of the 36 hours, I guess we can say.
They were all yesterday. You got your days mixed up. They were all in like a span of like 6 hours. P.O. Joseph going from St. Louis to back to Pittsburgh for future considerations.
Yeah, what do you make of that trade?
Penguins just needed warm bodies. They've got 3 guys banged up. They're facing a holiday roster freeze starting midnight on Thursday. Can't really call anyone up unless it's an emergency. Can't grab someone off of waivers, and they they thought, hey, this is an opportunity to just bring in a guy that Mike Sullivan and our coaching staff are familiar with, and we can ride out the holidays with an extra body. So simple as that, and just a little tinge of sadness because
the brothers.
Yeah, Matthew and P.O. Joseph were playing together in St. Louis, and I know Matthew posted on his Instagram yesterday, last dinner, and it's a shame. I know it's a small thing. It's the NHL. Trades happen, business happens, but right around the corner from the holidays, these guys are excited to play with each other, and the Winter Classic is just on the heels of that for the Blues. So that would have been a cool opportunity too, and just that's the way stuff happens sometimes.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw their photo shoot where they had awkward family photos.
Yeah, that was very weird.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. So obviously they got a good sense of humor, and for their parents, unreal. Hey, we're going to the NHL game, and both, rather than having to pick and choose, which game you're going to and when, you get to see both of them at some time. That obviously was great, but it's one, like, I look at Pittsburgh, and I know they didn't give up very much, obviously, Frank, and you're right, they needed a warm body, but like, I know the Penguins, like, if you look at the points, they're like, oh yeah, we're one back of Ottawa, but then you look at points percentage, they're still just a 500 team. So are the Rangers, so are the Flyers, and Ottawa is starting to roll. They're at 8-2-1. The Allmark is looking very comfortable all of a sudden in Ottawa with just ridiculous numbers his last 6 games. He's 6-0. He's had 2 shutouts. He's only allowed 5 goals. Like, they get goaltending there with their talent. All of a sudden, you look at Pittsburgh's team, and then you look at Ottawa's team, and you're like, well, I'd much rather bet on Ottawa at this point, right? And then you mentioned the Rangers.
We said that before the season, though.
Yeah, but I look at Pittsburgh, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. They keep making moves and they try, but I just don't know if it's.
Dude, it's nibbling around the edges is what it is. Like, but that's what Kyle Dubas's 2 summers have been outside of the Carlson deal. It's been moving around deck chairs on the Titanic. That's what it's been.
Yeah, no, it's fair. We'll agree on that. Now, one other team that we haven't talked about a lot, Frank, a team that I think has quietly played way better, especially considering the 2 of their top 4 defensemen. Well, one hasn't played all year, and one hasn't played since the 4th game of the season. The Utah Hockey Club gets another win last night in overtime over Vancouver, and here they are. They're 1 point back of Colorado. They have a higher points percentage in Colorado. They have a higher points percentage in the Calgary Flames. Like, Utah is staying in the fight here in the Western Conference.
Man, I give them so much credit. And I look in full, full transparency. I picked Utah to make the playoffs this year. And then those injuries happened. And it's like, man, it felt like the wheels were falling off, right? And I think what this does is reinforces the notion that this Utah team is way better than anyone wants to give them credit for. And yet, imagine how good they'd be with those guys. Like it wasn't just Sean Durzi and Marino going down. Like they've missed plenty of other guys that have all so then they bring up Maverick Lamoureux, right? And he's playing well as a prospect that they're really excited about. And he gets hurt. Kolyachonok, he's been out. It's like, it's just, they can't catch a break. And yet they've got some excitement in their market. They've sold out every game to this point, including all of the obstructed view seats in Delta Center. Every part about this has been impressive, and they've got a little bit of this underdog to them that, pardon the Coyotes pun there with the underdog, but they've got something to them that I think isn't infectious.
Well, they are really relying on Mikhail Sergachev. He's played almost 26 minutes a night, right? Like he has been excellent for them. And, Tampa Bay obviously has lots of depth and they're doing decently well themselves, but that trade for Utah in getting a legit number one defenseman who can log a ton of minutes, like with those injuries, I don't think they'd be anywhere close if Sergachev wasn't playing, as solid as he is.
He's 6 games so far, 28 minutes or over, including one night that was 30 minutes and 43 seconds. Crazy. And by the way, that game, 30 minutes and 43 seconds, scored the OT winner in Montreal.
Yeah. So, I don't know if they can do it, because here's the thing. I know Colorado changed their goaltending, Frank, and everybody thought it was just goaltending. And I was like, well, I didn't think their goaltending would just magically solve everything, because I still believe they got to play better defensively. And, they've just been okay since they revamped their goaltending. I think it illustrates, their big 3 gunners do a lot, but they got a lot of guys not doing much. And defensively as a team, they're very leaky still.
So by the way, what happened to Connor Ingram?
Goaltending position, my man. Honestly,
one of the great stories in the league last year, seizes the starting role, starts 48 games, plays 50, 6 shutouts, leads the league, 907 save percentage on a poor team, wins the Bill Masterton Trophy. And then now all of a sudden, hey, by the way, Karel Vejmelka is back to being this team starter.
Yeah, which I kind of thought so, but it's not so much that Vejmelka's the starter. It's that Ingram, what has he got? I think 3.6 goals against average and an 870 save percentage. Yeah. So it's not like
his goals saved above expected is minus 9.8. That's not good.
Oh, so yeah, well there. So it's not that Vejmelka took the starting job. It's that Ingram can't even be a serviceable backup right now. And that's that position, man. From if anybody out there can accurately predict, I would love to see it at the start of the year, go over number projections, not me, because I'd be terrible at it. Somebody and go over goalie projections and just see how wildly different they are from what people think they're going to be based on. Well, look what he's done the last few years. Because if you look at goal scorers, Frank, a lot of times you can say, okay, I think Leon Draisaitl, David Pastrnak, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, these guys, we think we know what they're going to do. And, for the most part, you get it right. Now, there's always a few exceptions of guys who play better, and, the odd player will struggle, but it's rare to see that. Yet in the goalie position, from year to year, oh my God, it is the most insane position that you see. There's the few Hellebucks and those guys, but Connor Ingram, you're right, Frank. Most people thought Connor Ingram was going to be a very solid, not great, but solid goaltender. and it's not even close. And he's not the only one.
Just to put a bow on our Utah discussion, Dylan Guenther on pace for 37. He's already matched last year's even strength goal total. He's closing in on matching last year's goal total. And that contract is an absolute bargain. Absolute bargain. He starts next year, 8 years times 7.1. 37 goal scorer is pretty much, you're exceeding. You're in the eights. You're closer to 9 at 37 goals a year.
Now, before we bring in Ty, I just want to say one thing. Kappo Kakko, when he scored 18 goals, did not play with Panarin. He played a total 100 minutes that year. He played mainly with Lafreniere and Philip Cheadle. That was their kid line that season for the Rangers. Just to point out. So
maybe I got my years wrong. But yeah, there is a year where he played entirely with Strome and Panarin. Yeah. So either way, we disagree on this one. You think Kakko, you think he's going to be something?
Yes, I think it'll be something. Not great. Make that abundantly clear, Seattle fans. Don't come in thinking that this guy's going to suddenly be like an elite first line player for you. That's not what I'm saying.
I think he's just a guy.
Jag. All right. Let's bring in Tyler Yaremchuk to the show. Ty, how you doing?
Good. That was passionate debate, gentlemen. You might be the two people who are most passionate about Kappo Kakko, so I appreciate
That's a lie.
that.
Johnny Lazarus is definitely way more passionate.
Shut up, Morning Cup of Hockey. Let me give a real simple one that could be proven right or wrong by the time people even consume this podcast. But you buying or selling, boys, on another trade happening before the trade freeze tonight, Frank?
Buying. I think Vancouver's active. We just mentioned the Preds. Midnight Thursday. Buckle up.
Greg's?
Yeah, the Vancouver one is interesting. Like, you know, they lose again last night and they're not overly happy there. Yeah, I would buy as well. I just think the guys' nervousness combined with, oh, geez, look at these other teams are making moves, so we're going to make one too.
It's like literally has nothing to do with either one of those things. They've been on the path for a defenseman that's a top 4 puck mover since training camp. So, like, if it happens today, it has quite literally jack shit to do with both of those things.
The point is they have to make a deadline. Jesus Christ, man.
I'm just saying, like, you want to get boxing gloves on. You're nervous because they're in the standings and they got to do it. Look, because other teams are making moves. Like, it literally, what?
Well, why is Vancouver so desperate for a move?
They're not desperate. They just want to make one. They want to make a move to make their team better. They're the most aggressive front office in the league. And, you know, I reported that 24 to 48 hours ago, they felt like they were close to making a deal. If it happens today, it's not because other teams made moves. It's because there's a deadline and an opportunity.
My next buy or sell is the sky blue. You guys gonna go at it about that too? All right. There is no division leader in the NHL on Bet365 who is an even money or better favorite. So I'm sorting by points percentage, but it's the Leafs, the Caps, the Jets, and the Golden Knights. What I want you guys to do, give me one team that you're buying on, most confident that they will hold on and win their division. Give me one of those 4 teams that you are selling on as least confident that they'll win their division. Again, it's Vegas, Winnipeg. It is Washington and Toronto. Greg's, I'll give you the first word.
Good question. I guess the least. That's a good question. I guess I'll say the Leafs because I like Florida. The Devils are playing really well, but Washington's still right there. Their goals have gone down significantly without Ovi, but he's getting close to coming back. They got 3 games in hand. So yeah, I guess I'll go Leafs, Toronto. Most, I would go Winnipeg.
Whoa. All right. I'll say I agree with you on, I think Florida probably ultimately wins that division. I also think the Golden Knights win that division. I'm really not sold on Winnipeg after they came back to earth. And Minnesota's just they just got smacked in the face with a rash of injuries again. So
That's why I went with Winnipeg. They got a 10-point lead on Dallas.
Yeah. I also think the Caps win the division too. So if I were ranking them in order of confidence, I know that wasn't the question. I would say Vegas, Washington, Winnipeg, Toronto.
All right, now you ready for what I think is a mind-blowing thing? The team that is the biggest favorite to win their division, according to Bet365, is the Edmonton Oilers. They are plus 140. No team in the league, according to Bet365, has a better chance of winning their division. Vegas is plus 200, which I feel like is a great bet. Greg's, you've always talked about how the Oilers have this long streak of having never won their division. And again, Vegas has a 5-point lead on Edmonton. So to get them at plus 200, I think is a pretty interesting spot if you want a little betting advice from me.
Predates the Oilers winning the division predates my existence on this earth.
Yeah.
1987.
Yeah. I was born in 88. I know. People's heads just exploded.
All right, let's go out east for my next one. Are you buying or selling on the Penguins not making the playoffs, but I'm going to say staying in the playoff race? So being within, let's call it 5 points by the end of the year. They've been on a nice run right now. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're 1 point back of Ottawa right now. Frank, you're up first on this one. Buying or selling on the Pens staying in the race?
Selling. Come on. What is the win here for them? We can say to our fan base that we stayed within 5 points, like just enough to not get another good pick. Like what? I don't know. I just not a believer in the Pens.
Greg?
I don't think they should, but I won't be surprised if they do, and basically doesn't help them at all. So they're like, oh, look, we got 88 points. Great. Now we pick 13th. Like, what the hell's the point of that? But they with Sidney Crosby there, they don't want to go into a real teardown. So, and right now, honestly, guys, like who do they really have, that they could move, right? That like Sidney Crosby gets you the biggest return by a mile, and everybody says that's not going to happen. So, Malkin probably still get you a move, but if you're not trading Crosby, you're trading Malkin. Like, I don't know who they even have to move that they want to move that's going to give them anything of significance. So they're not bad enough to suddenly plummet and join the likes of Montreal and Buffalo and everybody else going for the top 5 pick. So they're kind of in what I like to call NHL purgatory, which is the worst place to be.
Yeah, because similar, you guys were just talking about the Kraken and the Kakko deal. Like, I think part of the reason why Seattle almost has to make a move like that is because they're in that purgatory, and it's hard to find like star level talent unless you're going to spend a ton in free agency or be bad for a number of years. So interesting stuff. That is a wrap on this week's edition of Buy or Sell, brought to you by Bet365.
Yeah, like outside of Marcus Peterson, I'm not sure there's a player on Pittsburgh who's going to get you any sort of real interest. Like, I don't think Matt Grzelcyk gets you anything at this point. So
I might get someone to take Grzelcyk, but again, not value. And you have to retain on Pettersson. Not have to, but it can juice your return. Up front, I don't know. You're out of retained spots at that point.
Well, Drew O'Connor,
maybe. Like, yeah, but not value. He's a 4th line player.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to get anything significant. So that's the problem. When you have Sidney Crosby, he wants to compete super hard. I get it. I respect it, but that it probably keeps them, might not be 5 points, but they're going to probably be what, an 83 to 89, 90 point team, which makes you look like you're close to the playoffs, but you're not in the playoffs. And now you're probably not even getting a top 10 pick unless you win the lottery. So it's almost like a wasted year in a way.
When you look at an exercise in self-pleasure.
Let's get to the back half of the pod, brought to you by Fountain Tire. They specialize in tire and auto service, so you don't have to settle for a good deal or good customer service, because at Fountain Tire, they'll do both. Treat your vehicle like it's theirs. You need new tires, and maybe your engine has a little rattle. Stop in a Fountain Tire, and they'll sort you out. They'll take a picture of your vehicle and let you know which parts are A-okay. They have to be transparent. As always, Fountain Tire offers top quality tires and products from brands like Goodyear. Book an appointment today at fountaintire.com. The freeze comes in for the trade freeze anyway later tonight. The games keep going.
The freeze came into Edmonton, by the way. What's a foot of snow yesterday and minus 25?
Well, minus 19, but still, yeah,
Okay,
chilly.
sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a foot. It was a 3 shovel day. That's all I know. So whatever that amounts to.
You're not a big
thankfully it
measuring stick
wasn't
guy?
heavy snow, light and fluffy, but yeah, it's supposed to warm up though. All holidays, all Christmas, it's like minus 2-3 Celsius for any of our American listeners, but it's like what, 35, 36,
No,
which is
minus
perfect
Under 30.
for the ODR.
Yeah. You have the rink going in your neighborhood or what?
Oh, buddy, we have a big pond that's like 400 meters from our house. So the boys play there, but they like to go to the ODR because there's boards on it. So they'll go out there sometimes and play. It's like a bigger game of the young kids, and they have a riot. But there's an ODR that my son can, well, he doesn't like it, but I can make him hoof it to it. It's about a 15-minute walk, but sometimes I'll drive him. And him and his buddies now, like
minus 20 is like,
well, no, but they don't. Yeah, if it's that cold, they don't go. Like minus 10, anything from like -3 to -10 is the perfect ODR weather. It's the best. And you can literally, there's a shack at the one in our neighborhood. So you can play. And if you ever get cold, you just go sit in the shack, you take some snacks, right? Like they'll go there for 4 hours. It's unreal. And he's old enough now where, you know what, it's still good. Like he's 11, but just turned. And so the kids who are 14, 15, you know, some of them. And so every now and then, you know, like they let him touch the puck and it go. But then, you know, you got to try harder. I find it's fun sometimes at the ODR just to, you know, you gotta, if you want to get the puck, you gotta work for it.
Yeah.
You can't just, you know, complain and hope you get the puck.
Just for our American listeners, -10 is 14 degrees Celsius. A little cold for me. I'd say ideal weather is like -5, but yeah.
So what's that? 20?
20 something. Yeah. Let's see. -5 is 23.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll take -10.
Really, at the end of the day, it depends on the wind. If it's really windy, like it's that hurts.
Yeah. All I know is that just stay above zero, stay below zero, because the melt sucks for the ODR. So and it sucks for the roads and everything else. So I'd rather just stick with it this way. And the thing is, once the kids get used to it, like, you know what, -10 the first time might feel cold, but then the next time you go out and you're like, oh, it's not cold at all. So you get out there and it's a ride. I stood there and watched for about a half an hour the other day, and it just brings back memories, man. Like we spent hours on the outdoor rink, and I try to encourage my son to do it more often, because there's lots of kids, and even sadly some parents, oh, well, geez, it's too cold. And I'm like, stop being soft. Just let them go play. Like it's some of the best hours of your life, Frank. Played on the, well, I don't know. Does Philly have a lot of outdoor rinks?
No, we don't have any because it's not cold enough.
Oh, well, there you go. So what, you just play, do you get like pick up shinny hockey at all on indoors?
No, because the ice time's so limited. It's $500-$600 an hour. There's no.
What?
Yeah, you're not playing any pickup hockey. During the day, you could go to the rink and pay $10 to play pickup hockey, but everyone's in school. Yeah,
but no, like over the Christmas break. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could go do that and pay $10 and play. Yeah, but I mean, today's a perfect example. It's 44 here today. That's +7.
Yeah, that's not good.
No chance you could have, like, you need consistent days in the 20s, -10 in your world to have your ODR freeze and freeze nicely.
Are you serious that ice is $500 an hour in Philadelphia?
Six some places. Yep. Yeah, every year for the holidays, I usually rent an hour and just do like a family, family, friends, do a little pickup game. Yeah, $5.25 an hour.
Holy shit.
US dollars. Yeah.
Jesus. I
And
get
by
my
the way,
more,
the Canadian dollar dropped yesterday, as you may be
I saw
aware.
your tweet about that. It's like 20 mil, right?
Yeah, each cent is $20 million that HRR drops hockey related revenue. So, I mean, just it's yeah.
Well, definitely puts a strain on the American teams who play, or sorry, the Canadian teams who play their players in American money, right?
$525 for an hour of ice time in Canadian dollars is $753. And what would an hour of ice time cost you at your local rink if you wanted to go in and rent one?
It depends. Some of them are like $250 an hour. I get morning skates at 7 a.m. through our association for 115.
115?
115, but that's on a weekday at 7 a.m. before school.
Wow.
And it's, as a coach, I'm telling you, it's the best practice time. I know parents don't love it, but I explained to them, I said, the kids they got so much more energy. Like, I know that you got to get them out of bed.
I can tell
buddy.
you, like, every other Friday, I take Christian to play at 6 a.m. He does like a skills clinic, and it's an hour, and he loves it. He asks to go. Like, he asks to wake him up at 5:15 to go, and it's only one day a week, and we don't go every week, so it's not hot. Like, but he comes back, he's happy, he eats breakfast, he still has a couple minutes to like goof off on his iPad, and then he goes to school, and he's not tired. Like, he enjoys every part of it.
Oh no, the physical activity, man. Like, I will say this, this is a little bit of a rant, but you look at Finland's education, they have 15 minutes of movement every hour of physical activity, every hour. And in North America, we're like, oh, geez, gym class is barely mandatory anymore. And so kids, like, I went to parent teacher interview, and the teacher told me, she goes, and you can tell the days that Beckett does stuff before school, because he's not as much like, young boys in school sitting still, not necessarily their forte. And on those days, he's just and he likes school. So he's not, he's not a terrible student by any stretch, but on those days because sometimes I'll take him myself, we'll go to the ODR at 7:30 in the morning for a half an hour before school, because there's one literally a block from his school. So we go out there and we play the puck around, whatever, and then I just drop him off at school. And it's awesome. Like, it's fun for me, but I encourage anybody to get out there. It's great. And plus, it's kind of cool for kids, because here in Edmonton at 7:30 in the morning, Frank, it's still pitch black. So you got the lights on. You can turn the lights on at the rink, and it's like you're playing under the lights, man.
I mean, sounds amazing, but stupid question, and I've always wondered this. Who is responsible for maintaining that ODR?
So in St. Albert, the community where I live in, the city has people. And so most rinks will have one basic guy who's in charge of the ice. And that,
like a guy who lives in the neighborhood?
Yeah. No, he works for the city. And so, because it's not that, it's not like you're driving, far, usually, let's say if you're in one community, that guy probably lives within 50 minutes of there. And so there's sometimes some guys will have one or two rinks, but some guy might be responsible. He works for the city, and that's his responsibility. So, they have the Zamboni, it will come out and ice it, and they're shoveling it, they're scraping it. And there's certain rinks, Frank, you can tell the guys who take a little bit more pride in it. Like, when it gets to
is this a part-time gig, or like?
No, they'll work full time. And then that's in part during the winter months, that's part of their responsibility, right? Where they, they're running the rink, and it's awesome. There's certain rinks, Frank, I'll tell you, like, there's guys who are, if it gets too warm, he's like, no, we're not having you skate today. He'll close it, because so otherwise you just ruin it. Right. And then they freeze it. And I'll tell you, like, there is probably 4 or 5 ODRs in St. Albert that are top notch. Like, the ice is almost like an indoor rink, because they take it.
But how many times a day do they cut it? Just one Zamboni a day?
Yeah, usually. Yeah. Sometimes twice, depending, but they'll also be out there, and there's shovels. So if it's a day where it's snowing, because if it's not snowing, right, during the day, during the week, there's not that many kids skating on it. Right. So they'll skate at night, and then usually they'll go and they flood it first thing in the morning. Right. So then it has all day to freeze. So then the kids get off.
So if you're going at 7:30, like, that is like prime time. Right. Like, it's just been cut, and you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Or sometimes it's a little rough from the night before, depending on when he's gone. But so we'll, on the weekends, I know when to time it, and I'll go a half an hour after they flood it. And that hour, buddy, because anybody knows who's ever played hockey, that early morning, when you're the first person on the ice at the arena,
so good.
unbelievable. It's like the greatest, the smell, the feel, like your blades, you hear it. Oh, it's awesome. So you get that outdoors, man. And it
Get that
is
funny old fashioned romantic feeling.
Oh, honestly, like my son, there was times when, because there was the one that's right next door to his school and it's in the neighborhood. So they can't turn the lights on in the morning because the neighbors would be freaking out, right? Because they're getting woken up. So him and I, we went out there, and you know how you have the headlamp that you can put on your forehead and just turn it on. And so him and I would go out there with those on, just because I thought it was he thought it was the greatest thing ever. We're just shooting pucks, playing posts or whatever, but he's got his light on and he's wheeling around in the pitch black with his light on. And he can see it. And we did that probably twice a week when he was in grade 2 and 3. And I think I might have enjoyed it more than he did, but That's was awesome. Those moments. I tell anybody out there, like if you have the opportunity, I know maybe a lot of our audience doesn't in the United States, in certain places, they can't do it, but obviously I'm guessing in the state of Minnesota, they must have a lot of
Minnesota. That's what I was going to say. That's what would make me like romantic about the idea of moving to Minnesota for a couple years or somewhere where you could do that.
Yeah, like there's got like Utah must have some.
No.
Colorado?
Nope. It's just not consistently warm.
Yeah.
Like Colorado, they get 18-degree winter days.
Oh yeah. So it's really just is there any other states that could do it other than Minnesota?
Wisconsin. I mean, you could do it in North Dakota. You could do it in parts of Massachusetts and Maine, but I mean, it's
like
Vermont.
BC doesn't have outdoor rinks, right? Like they're really the only province in Canada that doesn't, right? Well, although I will say it's
getting harder in Ontario. Like I'm telling you, it hasn't been cold enough there for stretches. And look at Ottawa. Ottawa couldn't open the Rideau Canal last year.
Yeah, I know. It's too bad. We're kind of like last year. We probably only had about 7 or 8 weeks of ODR weather. This year it's been early. Right. Like usually it's January. Sometimes you might get mid-December, but the ODR has been open. Like it was open late November. Then it got warm for a few days. So they closed them. But now it's looking at the weather. The rest of this month looks unreal. There's no day above 0. So the kids for holiday break, for Christmas break, will be having the time of their life. So few other quick things around the league. You mentioned the Canucks are looking now. People said center iceman, but defenseman. Is it both? Is it like defense? I have to think with the injury to Roenick, and you just look at their decor. And do you think Desharnais is going out?
I mean, he could be part of a deal. They could, flip him for cap space or whatever picks. Like I think they're open to lots of ideas. He's not necessarily connected to whatever transaction happens next. But yeah, the priority has been, they need puck movers. They need guys. It's like the non-negotiable from Rick Tocchet: pressure, size, puck mover. All those things wrapped into one. Got to be able to get it out.
How frustrated are they with Pettersson?
I think they're probably frustrated with just about everyone outside of Quinn Hughes at varying points, right? Like, because you've seen flashes where it can be really good, and you've seen moments where they're just wildly inconsistent. Quinn Hughes is the only guy, I think, start to finish this year among their high-end players that has lived up to it. And like Kiefer Sherwood has been great. Yes. Like they've had like tons of other great supporting cast moments. But when Rick Tocchet made that comment about, oh, the Oilers can get away with that and the Canucks can't, well, it's fair but unfair. I'm not saying they're on the same level as McDavid and Draisaitl, but you have 2 40-goal scorers and 200-point players. So it's like there's not really any excuse.
Oh, no, they should be better. Sure. Jake DeBrusk has been pretty consistent for them over the last few months.
But he started so slow.
Yeah, he started
so
slow.
It's hard for me to even give him a great grade on consistency either.
Yeah. Kiefer Sherwood, Frank, not only has he already got a career high in goals with 11, he is on pace to absolutely obliterate the NHL's hits record, which was set 383 last year. Jeremy Lauzon, Matt Martin had 382. He's on pace for 502 hits. He has 180. Well, I didn't even check after last night. He had 184 going into last night's game. The next
191.
So he had 7 last night. Look, so he's at 191.
Full respect to Kiefer Sherwood. Like, his story and his season has been great. And man, do the Nashville Predators miss him. All I'm going to say is when you have that big of a disparity going from one team to the other, it speaks to the inconsistency of the NHL's off-ice scorers. You go from Nashville to Vancouver, where you play the majority of your home games. It's different. It just is.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to the stats guys. Did you know that starting last year now,
they do
have
audit? Yeah.
They have somebody who oversees their stats, right? Like that's why we're seeing in games even at intermission.
Dude,
so
I get what you're saying though, but there's zero chance on earth that Kiefer Sherwood has gone from he had 234 hits last year, which is still a lot.
Yes.
So that's 3.44 per game to now this year where he's gone to 6.16. I'm sorry. His game has not changed that much to the point where he has increased his hit production by 2. It's just not possible.
But no one else in Vancouver, like the next highest guy in hits is like 60. Right? So like are they only are they only altering his numbers?
Not altering his numbers, but it's just different people counting them than we're counting them last year.
Yeah, but I guess I'd have to look at his hits at home and on the road, and if there's that much of a disparity, because every road building's different too, right?
I don't know if they keep track of that here on Hockey Reference, but I think I might be able to look it up.
Well, I can find it on the NHL site.
Yeah, they don't have hits on here in the splits, but anyway, interesting question. I'm sorry, I don't believe that he went from 3 to 6 per game. Call me skeptical.
Yeah. But his goal totals are going to double too.
Frank the Prick strikes again.
Yeah. Wow. I'll find that number. I'm trying to find it quick here between.
Hey, we got a wrap.
Home and road. So I'll get that for the next pod. I'm curious if there is, because I do know that used to be an issue. The Cal Clutterbuck hit rule, what they talked about in Minnesota, that was a legit thing. So we'll see if his hits are that high on the road to at home. We will have one pod before Christmas. So we'll talk to you then. That's the rundown brought to you by Fountain Tire and Bet365. Get in the game at Bet365. Use the promo code NATION.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.